So yeah, there is a lot to do in the garden in October. So we're going to be talking about that. We got a special treat. We got kind of the whole gamut of things to talk about. So, and whenever we talk about these tasks, remember, if you're in an area that's colder than where we are, you may be doing this a little bit earlier. If you're somewhere warmer, you may be doing it a little bit later. But really, this applies across the board. So, talk about a little bit about dividing some perennials in the fall, replanting them, cutting some things back that sometimes confuse people. And I just want to point out that people all have their favorite gardening tools, whatever they might be. I like a little pickaxe, especially in my woodland where I don't have great soils. It helps, cuts through the roots, things like that. I love my Hori knife. I use this all the time for everything. I have learned, don't try to take it on a train in China, because good luck explaining to them that this is not a knife, but is a gardening tool. Somewhere floating around in China, there is a video of me saying that I voluntarily give this up and I'm not taking it, and they are not stealing it from me, and I am doing it voluntarily. So I had to get another one. If anybody knows a good, hard plastic or something, one that won't shatter when you use it, let me know. The other tools I like to use especially when I'm transplanting plants and digging them up and dividing, are some shovels. And, for a lot of digging in the garden, of course, we use a round point shovel, but I really like dividing with a square point shovel. And this is a great shovel, had for years and years. It's all steel construction. So it doesn't break, the handle doesn't break, doesn't come apart. It's all one piece welded, so it stays tough. Somewhere along the line, I lent somebody mine. I used to have one that had a solid, this is a hollow handle. I used to have one with a solid steel handle. It's heavy as heck, but boy, boom, you could really dig with it. So it was great. And this different people call it different things. I've always called it a sharpshooter for some reason. I use this a lot for transplanting shrubs and trees and things where I really want to be able to dig all the way around, get all the way underneath it without prying it and breaking the roots, but cutting them instead. Or if it's something larger and I'm going to have some help moving it, I will trench, just like you would dig a trench. I will trench all the way around and down so that I can get through all the roots and then cut through. But instead of just trying to do one little cut around, I'll actually dig a 6 or 8 or 12 inch moat around the plant and then can dig under and undercut it. And that makes it easier to get something under it, to pick it up and move it. But I'm not digging woody plants here today. I'm just going to talk about a couple of different types of perennials and things. So we love our ginger lilies here. We've got a lot of them, but this applies to any kind of spreading plant like this that has thick rhizomes, and canna lilies, other plants like this. And I find that people think they have to be careful and delicate with plants, and boy, you really don't. Now, there's two things here. Let me get this out of the way. So, if you cut things back, it makes it a lot easier to dig them and divide them. But also in our area where we'll get these will come up, they'll flower. This looks ragged to me. It's got, the old flower stalks, its leaves are starting to look a little rough. So sometimes at this time of year, I'll just come in and cut back the old stalks, and you can see we've got new stalks coming up. And if we don't have some cold nights for a while, these will grow and flower for us. So that's one thing, is just cutting things back. People always seem to really unsure, when can I cut things back? When they start looking ugly and bugging me, I cut them back. Why keep them up? They'll either resprout or they'll go dormant for the winter. Now, there's a few things that I may not do that with, but for the most part, I will. Now, dividing something like this, now you could dig this whole thing and carefully take it apart, but if you just wanted to dig maybe a chunk to give to a friend, you just get in there and, oh, got my wrong shovel. Get in there and, give it a good whack. With something like this, you can pry it up because you're really just needing that thick rhizome on there. But you can see, I've chopped right through there. This will be just fine. See, there's a nice new growth right there. This piece is looking kind of old and rough. I usually just get that out. Now, one thing, if you're coming from a friend's garden, taking this from a friend, or if you're like me and you have maybe a weedy spot in the garden and you're moving something out of there, I'll go ahead and pull off most of the soil. Try and make sure I'm not getting weeds and weed seeds and things in there. Now, I'm not going to clean this off more than that, but just like this. And then I'll, if I want to replant it, like I said, I like my little hand pick. I'll just dig myself a hole. And what I like with small things is I don't really dig a hole. I just loosen up the ground and then get in there with my hands and dig it in. And then you water it in. Always water it in. We have a rule here. Tim probably got tired of me saying this early on working together, was it's not planted until it's watered in. You don't count on rain. You don't count on a sprinkler doing it. You really want to get good contact between the roots and the soil. And you get more young plants dying because people are too gentle with it than being too rough. If I have to dig a big hole, I'll get in there and stomp it down. Now, people say, oh, don't do that. You'll compact the soil. Well, I've been doing this for decades, and I'll tell you what, I lose fewer plants than a lot of other people do by really getting in there and doing that. So it's pretty easy. You can do that. You can dig up a whole chunk. And these roots can get pretty big. So, got this whole chunk. You want to give it to friends. You want to spread it around your garden. You can chop it up with your trusty shovel. You can come in there with pruners if you want. But these are pretty thick roots, so I'd just set this on the ground if I want to divide it more and chop it with my shovel. Just get in there and I've got 2 more plants. You look for those growing points. You got a good growing point. Chop it again, whole bunch of plants. You don't need to be gentle. And if you leave any of this rhizome in the ground, it'll pop back up right there where it was. It's the good thing about being the boss when you do this, because Tim and Sophia are looking at me going, he's going to leave that mess out here for us. And they are correct. So I mentioned cutting things back, and I love my species irises, but they start to look ratty. And when they do, you cut them back. And really, I'm cutting this back just because I want y'all to be able to see what's behind there. Now, irises, you can dig and divide them and move them now. And a lot of people tell you now's the time to do it, and that's fine. It's great for them. I like to move my irises immediately after they finish blooming, because when you do that, they've got more chance to establish and flower the next year. If you divide this iris this year, and it's the same process, dig it up, break it apart. If you do that this year, you're probably not going to get any flowers next year. And I'm getting old. I don't have time to wait years and years for my irises to flower. So I like to do it right after they flower. And that could be in the middle of summer. And I've got no problem planting plants and dividing them in the middle of summer, as long as I can keep them watered. All right. So peonies. Now, herbaceous peonies are easy to deal with. They start looking real ratty, you cut them back down to the ground. You'll have all kinds of little buds at the base. Tree peonies are easy. You just let them go and you prune for shape, but you don't need to do a whole lot of pruning on them because they've got woody stems. But the whole group of Ito peonies, the hybrids between herbaceous and the tree peonies, people get really confused about, because if you get in here, you've got really woody stems, but the plants look rough, and some people say, what do you do? Well, you treat them mostly like a tree peony, maybe not cut back quite as far, but I'm gonna cut one of these real short to show you. When you cut back, there are buds in there. They're big old fat buds, little buds. Everywhere a leaf was attached is a bud. Now, you don't want to cut back as far as I did, all the way to the ground, but if this was on your plant still, you cut it back to there, you've got this nice big fat bud. That's gonna grow out next year and flower for you. So some people are afraid to cut back hard. I cut back, left a stem about 6 inches tall. Hopefully y'all can see that in there, where a big fat bud is there. Some people are afraid to do that, and they'll instead of cutting back to about 6 inches, they'll cut it up, up here and leave this tall thing. Well, your plant will get bigger quicker because it'll grow from these buds. But what'll happen is it'll start up higher, get these branches that'll grow quickly, because this is all 1 year, and then they'll flop if it rains and when it flowers. So cut it back a little bit harder to right above those buds. And it'll do great that way. Now, I'm not gonna cut this whole thing back, but if you look under here, hopefully you can see that here's the main crown, and you can see it's nice and woody like the tree peonies. Now, maybe I will cut this all back, get it out of the way so you can see. I just don't have time to be precious about my plants. Get them cut back and ready for winter, great. I usually go through when I do that, and there's some old little dead stuff in there, last year's things I cut back that didn't grow out, and I'll kind of break those out, keep it cleaned out in the middle. Now, you don't even want to try to divide this thing in here. This is gonna, this thing is like a tree trunk in here. But if you get your hori knife or your shovel, some of these outline pieces you can often get out. So and you dig around there, you figure out where it's attached, and that's why I love my hori knife. It's got a little saw edge in there to help me dig through those roots. I say we all have our favorite tools. I know somebody else who uses, basically Ginsu knives. They've got a lifetime warranty. They just use them till they're a nub and then boxes them up and sends them back to the company and gets new ones. So it doesn't look like much here. Just a little piece that had come off the side. But you can plant that, and it'll take it a couple years to flower. It's not gonna flower next year, but it will flower in about 2 years, depending on the size. So it doesn't have to be a whole big piece, and you don't have to be that careful and precious about it. Real easy. So there you go. You've got a whole new peony. You got nice buds. You can see it's formed roots, so you can plant this. It'll grow in. Just give it a little bit of time. So, any questions about transplanting, cutting back? things like that.
Yeah, Mark, somebody asked, would you treat beautyberry the same way as you do the peonies?
So beautyberry, Calicarpa, great native shrub, great Asian shrub. You can do that. You can let it grow. It'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. Flowers on new wood. So you can cut it back every year. Cut it all the way down to the ground, down to 4 or 6 inches. Cut it back halfway. Let it resprout, grow up, fruit for you really well. It really depends on what you want. If you want it to get nice and big, let it go. Otherwise, cut it back every year. And I do different things with mine depending on where they are and what I want out of them.
Somebody asked what brand of sharpshooter you use.
Whatever one's at Lowe's or Home Depot that I buy.
It's behind you.
I don't even remember what this one is. Sturdy. Don't buy cheap tools. You know. Ames, Bronco.
Okay. How and when to split a potted pineapple lily that has many crowns?
All right. I'm going to leave that question open because Tim is going to be talking about caring for more tropical plants, bringing them inside. But, you know, the short answer is whenever you have time to do it.
Okay.
Other?
That looks like that's
all right.
questions.
Well, thanks for joining us. Everybody, this is Mark Weathington, JC Raulston Arboretum. We appreciate everybody being here with us. So thank you.